everyone. Welcome to another episode of EdTech Connect, Innovators in Conversation. For this episode, we are joined by CEO of Knowt, Abheek,
Yeah.
with our CEO of Magic EdTech, Acky. How are you guys today?
Doing great, as usual.
Excited to be here, especially connecting with Abheek and understanding his journey over last 9 years. It was just amazing to see how he has actually launched the company, grown the company. So this will be very exciting conversation. Thank you, Kiara, for arranging this. Abheek, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, no, thanks both of you guys. I'm excited to be here. It's always great to share the story and connect with people that are doing some like-minded things.
Yeah. Great. Well, we're going to jump right into it, gentlemen, with some icebreakers to break the conversation, keep it light before we get deep into EdTech. So the first question, instant gut reactions. If AI could instantly give you one superpower in your role, what would it be? Acky, go.
I'd like to be all over the place. I'd like to be everywhere.
Okay.
It's just a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one. All right, Abheek, your turn.
Yeah, I think like insight, having it kind of in the same sense, like knowing all of the information all at once and just being able to help everybody on the team. I think that's like the most challenging part. So hopefully we could solve that with AI.
I love it. Super
I think
positive.
Abhik has put better than I have put that on.
No, this is not a
He
competition. Okay.
he wins this point,
Okay, quick. Next one. What's one thing in education you wish AI could fix tomorrow? Abhi, go.
Yeah, I'd say like there's a lot of bureaucracy around some of the tools that are used, and there's a lot of like I've seen that like certain schools they purchase like 3 or 4 different tools, and then don't necessarily need or know that the teacher is using those 3 or 4 tools. I think AI can kind of just like it would give me the insights if I could, wave a wand. I think AI will start to give educators a lot more insight, but also administration insight. I think administration has a very big disconnect with educators. So hopefully that will simplify the number of tools. And hopefully in the process of simplifying the number of tools, we'll simplify the whole system and just make it a little bit tidier and easier to, iterate in the future.
Love it.
Yeah.
Aki, your
I
turn.
think that's a very big problem, Abhik. Good point.
Mhm.
For me, if there's one thing that AI could solve in education, I would say, can we make the learning experience much more magical, much more happy experience, right? I mean, I came across this expression, learning without tears somewhere, and association of learning is it's painful
Yeah.
versus no, I'm now enjoying this. I know why I'm doing this, and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So can AI make that happen for both educators and for and in some ways, what Abhik says is correct. Educators are burdened often with this whole bureaucracy thing, with this
Yeah.
whole administration. They came into this profession because they enjoy, you
Mhm.
know, engaging with students, teaching children, and then suddenly you're telling them to do 20 other things, which is nothing to do with that. So if AI can solve that, right, and make it magical journey, make it a happy experience, in fact, that would be great.
Right.
Totally agree.
I was going to say, happy to hear the magic, right? Aki, it's on brand for Magic EdTech. I love it.
I like that.
Maybe that was my plug-in.
I was like, wow. All right. Last quick question. If your company had an AI personality, what would it be? Aki, your turn.
Superman
Superman.
or
Nice.
Superwoman or super person. Sorry.
All super.
All
Super
super.
people.
Yeah. But it's just I just saw the movie, so obviously, you
Yeah.
come back
Ah,
say, hey, that's what it is,
Yeah.
right. With what? Abheek,
Be
your
be
turn.
human also, but that's what this movie is all about, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I like that answer. I mean, that's definitely one of the personalities I'd say. I'm a big Iron Man person, so like I would let's go with that. I think like being able to sort of create new things on the fly, and that would be a really great sort of personality to have. Maybe we can take some load off of ourselves a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I love it. icebreakers done. Let's get into the real stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Deeper conversations about EdTech. Okay. So, first up, when you think about how students learn today versus 10 years ago, what do you think AI is truly changing and what isn't changing? Okay.
Mm.
Abby, you want to take this one?
Yeah. The fact that I was in school 10 years ago, I have a first-hand insight. And my brother's just graduated from high school, so I know how things have changed a little bit. I mean, back in the day, I think a lot more emphasis was placed around memorization and, having a general sense of like, I would practice like the multiplication tables, all that stuff. I think that's like starting to get more and more irrelevant. Like, I mean, as this technology is introduced, those things are starting to take sort of a backseat. Um, so even back in my day, like, and I say back in my day, like it was that long ago, but like when I was in school, like everything was on paper, everything is sort of manually calculated. Nowadays, the even the coding assignments that they get are all online. Back in my day, I had to write it on paper. So writing it online, sort of it has syntax checking right there. So the emphasis is more on like application rather than memorizing things that are now not really needed on a day-to-day basis. And I think if there's one prediction I can make, it's like in the next 10 years, more and more of the things that we sort of focused on really heavily will become less important. And it will be more about the higher level thinking behind things rather than like doing the mundane sort of like checking the syntax or, testing, a specific thing, and that goes for, like, pretty much any subject. So that's what I've seen has changed a little bit, but over the next 10 years, I expect it to change, quite a bit.
Right. And I think also the fact that, as you said, like 10 years ago, like it's not that long ago for you with
Yeah.
the whole building of notes. So you guys have really good insight into taking the mundane tasks that we were doing previously with your
Yeah.
software and making it instantaneous so that have that personalized learning and approach and take that 40-page PDF into something relevant to you and your study pathway. So I think that's also what's really cool about this conversation we're having today is because you guys have that AI technology you built that students and teachers can use right away, whereas Magic has been building platforms that
Yeah.
can get to that level. So I'm gonna turn it over to Aki on that note.
Yeah.
Get it? No pun. Um, that one. So Aki, what are your thoughts about 10 years with AI now going in the future?
Um, I mean, Abhik, first of all, your answers so much on the point. Just if I were to just, you maybe just not repeat what you said, but add to what you said. 10 years back also we were talking about the same stuff, right? Which is, how do I improve learner efficacy? How do I, make, a learning experience better? I think one thing that has certainly happened is that it's not that digital was not there before,
Mhm.
uh, but I think digital become all the more prevalent now. And the other thing is that the emphasis, which was a lot more in classroom versus it becoming now seamless across, which is, from the smart boards to the devices. And I think, the conversation 10 years back, I remember we used to often talk about the last mile problems of network bandwidths and whether students have right devices and all that, memory and memory in the devices and all that. Versus now, I think those conversations are behind. COVID, of course, helped us accelerate the adoption of digital technologies quite a bit. It solved many of the problems that we were dealing before, and in some ways, it's also brought learning in a little bit of what I would say is a distributed and hybrid model, which is
Mm.
what the world is going towards. In any case, our workforce is, we have to prepare the students for an environment which is going to be that kind of environment, and I think learning is going towards that side. What is not changing or will not change, in my opinion, is this idea of mastering uh, you know critical skills thinking. We talked about it 10 years back also,
Yeah.
right? But it's just the focus is a lot more on that one. How we have to get us learners to be critically thinking about it, right? And I think some of the things on the spectrum, if you were to look at learning some, and here the spectrum That doesn't mean the other spectrum we talk about often in education. But here is, if you're looking at a flat file, a PDF document, or a textbook page versus experiencing it in AR, VR, or gaming environment, right? And creating that experiential learning, I think that is becoming more and more possible going
Yeah.
forward. So I think our efficacy is going to improve substantially, in my opinion. So I think I feel that some of the basic stuff will remain. Like, for example, we'll keep talking about whether our students are mastering various competencies, whether various subjects. I think that topic will remain, but I think it will be club along with critical thinking, because we know that what you master today may not be relevant after 10 years. So we want to ensure that the student has got a built-in capability to keep reinventing themselves, rediscovering themselves into the world that we keep emerging or evolving next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So I think that getting them prepared for that very, very dynamic world is what is going to be the focus in the next 10 years.
Right. I love that, especially because we're talking about personalized learning, immersive learning. And I think one of the most common questions teachers get from students is, how is this relevant to me? And if we're teaching them that critical thinking skill and doing the immersive learning environment with it, then they're starting to see that answer to that question sooner rather than 10 years down the road when they're sitting in their first job.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
totally agree with you both.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, next question. Going on to some trust issues with AI, which is always coming up in the education forums.
Yeah.
Do you think students and teachers trust AI yet? And if not, what would it take to earn that trust? So, talking about the really deeper connection and meaning with AI and the usage. Acky, would you like to start?
Um, you know, I would say that at an individual level, we all, students, teachers, me personally, my family members, they uh, already have started using AI quite a bit at the personal level. Our devices are now powered by AI. Our browser is powered by AI.
Mm.
Our photo library, you know, a shopping cart, everything is powered by AI, and we're quite comfortable in that environment, in my opinion. Yeah, sometimes we freak out and think, "Yeah, I just talked about shoes, and I suddenly get my browser showing me shoes, and
Yeah.
my God, that thing is listening to me." Something we freak out, but we kind of okay with that. I mean, so at an individual level, the adoption of AI is quite a bit. And look at the open AI adoption, right? I mean, you look at the usage, right? It's crazy, right? Everybody jumped onto it, everybody started using it, and if you're traveling somewhere, people are just going there and creating an itinerary out there and saying, okay, if I'm going for 3 days to Yellowstone, what am I supposed to do?
Yes.
And it gives you much better answer than Google gives you. Google gives you just 1,000 links. So we're very comfortable at the individual level. I think when it comes to the institutional level, which is where there's this extra burden that we have in terms of how safe it is, how secure it is, does it hallucinate, and how much control we want to give the AI tools to our learning process within the classroom or something like that, or within the homework environment, correct? And there's this initial negative reaction to, nobody should use AI to do their homework, versus now they're saying it's okay, you use the AI, but when you come into the classroom, we're going to discuss that in a manner that will allow us to discuss what is the output and whether we agree with that output or not. So I think at the institutional level, I think, a little bit of a lag in terms of how AI will be applied and how to make it safe and secure. And this is where, Abhik, given your presence in this classroom and given the work that you've done over the last 9 years, I'd love to hear more about how you've seen this evolving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, totally. I think what you said is very accurate, and I think like even if you listen to like what OpenAI or Gem or Google is saying about AI, it's like people use it very differently in different scenarios. Um, when it comes to like trust, I think the best way to kind of phrase it is like I'm not entirely sure how much they trust it yet. I think there's a group of people that are very cautious, and there are a group of people that are very forgiving. Like, and I think right now we're still in like the early stages where people are very forgiving. And that's usually the case for there we go. So uh, I think in the early adoption, like if you look at that curve, there's like a very, I forget the name of the curve, but they're like early adopters are generally very forgiving. And that's I think we're still in the early adopters wave of AI. Like I think the people that are starting to use it are very forgiving people, and they understand that this technology has its limitations. I think as we progress over the next maybe 10 years or 5 years, who knows? I think more and more people who aren't the early adopters are going to use it, and they are the ones that have the doubts. And they are the ones that are going to be to get to that 100% level or even 99.9% level will take us 5, maybe 10 years, because that confidence is needed. And I think the best analogy for this is like I always like to think of somebody who doesn't know anything about a topic. You just ask them to go and figure out how to research something. So if it's like an itinerary, right? You're asking somebody who doesn't know anything to go and research an itinerary. That's what AI is, because that person, they don't have a knowledge base of, the itinerary. They're going and doing the research. The only difference is it's a computer, so it's doing the research at 100 times the speed that a human would do it, right? So it's still doing the research, but just as if I asked a friend to do the research, I wouldn't accept 100% of what they say, right? I would always say, "Hey, there's more research we can do." And I think it's the same way, right? So the AI is just learning something when you ask it to. It's just doing it 100 times faster. And so there will always be, some information gap that you have to fill in. Maybe if the computer can do it 1,000 times faster, it might span more sources and then give you a better do better research. Just as if we spend 10 years researching something, we know it way better than somebody who did it for 1 year, right? So I think that gap will close down. And right now there is a distrusting community, and those people haven't adopted AI yet. So the job is to make that compute faster, and also just make it more sort of comprehensive.
And Abhi, if you don't mind
Yeah,
my adding to what you just said, I guess give me some idea. One is that I think, we as tech companies, right? You and I, we both have a responsibility to continue to build in trust within the tools,
right.
right? Make them secure, make them safe. So I think that's our job. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But we also know that the pace at which AI tools are changing, the models are changing, it will always be a catch-up game on that front. So that is one thing. I think the other thing is maybe change a little bit of how the how the teachers and the learners would rethink their discussions in the class. So bring in a lot more critical thinking kind of discussion in the classroom. Let the student use the AI, let the teachers use the AI, but when they come into the classroom, you know have a conversation, have a discussion, and do critical thinking on the top of what AI has produced, right? And this is where I think if you look at our work environment, I mean, that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, AI is going to throw something at you, and you should have the eye to look at it and say, "Huh, doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Let me go back and recheck the data. Let me go and recheck the fundamentals, right?"
exactly.
This is exactly what we're supposed to do in the classroom. So I think the classroom learning has to evolve, right? And I see it already. A lot of professors are already talking about it. So I
Yeah,
think this is where we are going now with this. So I just wanted to add those 2 points on top of
those are really important. Yeah, I think it ties into that last question that Kara asked perfectly, right? Like what things have changed, and it's the mundane things have gone down, and now we're focusing more on critical thinking, which is what learning should have been from the
that. Should
start.
have been in the
It
first
just
place.
wasn't
Yes.
possible. Yeah, just wasn't possible yet.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was so glad you guys both brought up this second part of the conversation because my next question was going to be that, these younger students growing up with AI search now, they somewhat take what's written there as the truth and full truth, right? And as you guys are mentioning, the critical thinking development, having teachers push that critical thinking and questioning their sources is going to be the next biggest thing to put into the classroom more emphasis on because the students are saying, oh my gosh, AI said this, it must be true. When it's
Hmm.
not, we know hallucinations happen all the time. So
Right.
you guys beat me to my question. So thank you for
Yeah.
that.
There we
But
go.
yeah, but continuing on this thought of AI and classroom and the usage, How do we make sure that as AI becomes more common in classrooms among students and teachers, that it helps students feel more seen and not just another tool managing them? I'll open it up to discussion. It's a deeper question. We're getting deeper here, guys.
Yeah. I like those deeper ones because I I think we have solved a lot of easy problems over the last 5 years, and I think now we're finally getting just like critical thinking is becoming more important, it's becoming more important to solve these more substantial questions. My take on it is I think for students, maybe we can finally get to a level where the AI understands what a student's preferences and how they learn best and kind of alters a more standard material to their preference. Like whatever their interest is or whatever their like maybe they're not people who can read something and figure it out. Maybe they need a visual, right? Maybe they need a video, maybe they need a chart and I was one of those people, like, I couldn't, like, pick up anything unless I saw a visual, but, I mean, a teacher has 35 students, they can't make a visual for 2, 3 students, right? So, everything is sort of, standardized, and, like, standardized testing was designed so that we could standardize everything, and I think AI will actually open the ability for us to and the keyword here is differentiate the material. And I think for a student, that will be so valuable because I think they will feel more comfortable learning material and they'll always have somebody to turn to um, when they need more help. Right. And I think that's availability and like personalization will be very not I wouldn't say easy, but it will be a lot easier. Um, now, the student, I think, will hopefully flourish in that environment, and I think that that's the goal. I mean, eventually, I think right now there are like a lot of steps to it. It's like a teacher has to do, even though like it simplified the teacher's workflow by quite a bit. I still think there's like steps that a teacher has to take. So like a teacher has to know, oh, this person's a visual learner. I need to give them a visual. I think in the future it will become like the student has been talking to the AI so much, the AI knows they're a visual learner, and it will automatically adjust the content without the students prompting or without the teachers prompting. And I think that would be absolutely fantastic.
Right.
Just opens up a lot.
Yeah, so it's like I know what you like and how you want it, so it's
Yeah,
just gonna give it right away without questions. Yeah,
exactly.
interesting. All right,
And
Aki,
I just want
thoughts?
to add to what Abhik said, that I think, when you talk about, teachers get busy managing students, right? Rather than, seeing the students or engaging with the students. I'm using a slightly different word here, but I
Yeah,
think the reason why teachers end up managing students is because, the teacher-student ratio is crazy, correct?
yeah,
And the moment it's, you're dealing with masses, you go to what our big says, you have to standardize stuff.
yeah,
Otherwise, how will I manage 50 kids in a classroom? I
yeah,
can't, right? I have to standardize. I have to ask them the same questions, right? And I think digital allows you to do some bit of personalization, but with AI, I think you kind of, it's you're super powering it to a degree where you're able to now personalize it quite a bit. At the end of the day, it also boils down to bandwidth. One is, I want to know where a student is. I want to deliver learning to the student where the student is, rather than giving the student to my way of doing things. I want to do it in their way of doing things, right? So for that, you need bandwidth, right? And so that's what the AI would provide, like a big set, right? I can immediately on the fly deliver the learning content slightly differently for this learner, because this learner is slightly visual. I mean, uh, it's not that we didn't know about this science. We used to talk about it way back in our time, earlier days, when we used to say there are 7 types of learners, right? And the interesting thing is, that also is not the right way to look at it, because there are not 7 types of learners, but today I feel like reading the text, but tomorrow I'd rather watch the video and learn, and then the day after tomorrow I'd rather do something and then learn. I mean, I'm the same guy,
yeah,
Mhm.
but today I feel this way, tomorrow I feel that way. But if it comes to chemistry, I want to do it this way, but if it's math, I want to do it this way. You understand? So I think, how do I get there where the student is today? I think that's the thing about now. Of course, we thinking it'll become a very magical world and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of hard work to be done, and
Yeah.
particularly by tech companies like yourself, Abheek, and like
Yeah.
me, we have to you know create this safe environment, and so it doesn't go off the rails. I mean,
Yeah.
technology can do a lot of crazy things for the students, and we don't want to get to that level where we kind of lose control. I think the social media is an example of that, Instagram and all that, and it has created side effects on our young minds, on our children's young minds, very in a very crazy manner. We don't want those stories to come out from our classrooms when we're deploying these tools, right? So
Right.
Right.
Right. Completely
Right.
agree.
We have a little bit of a discussion going on internally about the whole social media as a curriculum trend. I don't know if either of you have seen that, but now with
mm,
the micro lesson learning on social media platforms, they're saying that now social media could become a new curriculum. Just to keep your thought there. We
Interesting.
won't get into that one, but it's something that I've been seeing pop up more in recently into the forums, which I never thought about before as a
Interesting.
social media person, but here we are.
Yeah.
So, talking about personalization and making the learning accessible and adaptable to every style of learner, we're going to head into our last question,
Hmm.
which is there's a lot of talk about this personalization, immersive learning, etc. But how do we keep learning personal when it's being shaped by algorithms? Right. So,
Yeah. That's a great question, and I think unfortunately, I don't know if there's even a right answer or like a remotely close to right answer. I think the number one thing, and I kind of wanted to say this earlier, but I have this belief that I think AI will get to a certain point where it becomes invisible, and I think that is when we truly have really good AI, right? When it can kind of step away from everything else and just make your life easier. Because like right now we're in the middle phase. I totally feel like we're in the middle phase. We're prompting it, we're asking it specific things, and this is like it's like training wheels, right? Like you're not actually like riding the bike. It's something is propping it up. And I think for us, in the future, and I hope to see it in the next couple of years, is AI that truly disappears and lets us be more personal people. And I think if we can get to a level where, and I think Aki said this, a couple times, but we want teachers to engage with the students. And I think right now, and it's not because the teachers don't want to. I think the teacher's main focus is how do I assess my students? How do I give them the right homework? And how do I make sure that the results of the classroom are really good? Because I'm being evaluated on results. And I
mhm,
think in the future, if AI goes right and companies like ours implement it correctly, the teacher's job will be more of similar to like a therapist, where it's like they are there to help the student, and accomplish the goals that they have, rather than somebody who is just giving them homework or giving them a test and assessing them. And I think that really would be the best, scenario for our education system, is like having that support system while they're trying to learn and
mhm.
getting stuck, rather than somebody who's just kind of like an overarching figure that gives them stuff to do, like, you know? So, that's the way I view it, and I hope we can get to that mission or that vision, sooner rather than later.
Wow.
and Abhik, I have to support you on that point because in my memory, my best teachers, if I go back, and I'm old, I'm ancient compared to you, but it's like going back almost 45, 50 years back in my life, and if I remember any of my teachers, today, is because they were my coach and they were my mentors.
Yeah.
What you say is absolutely correct. We want teachers to get back to that situation rather than, and there's this whole idea of fit classroom. Fit classroom was kids would go and study, read the materials that come into the classroom, and then the teacher would engage with them,
Mhm,
and bring individuals in a group setting to express their thoughts on what they've done as their
mhm,
homework, right? And that was the best learning. I go back in my time, and I would remember those teachers more than, I mean, all other teachers faded out of my memory, but those are still very close to me, right?
yeah,
And I think what's happening, one of the things about the digital part of the learning. So as we move more and more digital, you're giving powerful tools to the students and teachers, right? And so what happens is now going they're going out to discover content for learning, right? They're becoming curious, they kind of, and this is where this algorithm question becomes very relevant, because then what happens, you could get tunnel vision into certain kind of content based on certain prompts that you've done, even in your learning platform, because the learning platforms nowadays have the recommendation engine, right? And add AI on top of that, it can become hyperscale tunnel vision kind of a thing. And so therefore, again, as tech companies like you and I, what we have to do is we have to design the system in such a way that if you're getting tunnel vision, the engine should say, hey, since you like this, let me give you something which is of opposite view,
Right.
and therefore make it holistic learning of sorts, right?
Yeah.
So push for the nudge for the critical thinking, make them pause a little bit rather than they keep digging hole into one way of one type of content getting into their learning dashboard of sorts, right? So I think that's something which we must design for. See, I think we're all dealing with the algorithm problem on the social media platforms like
Yeah.
Instagram and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, right? um, or even on your web browser for that matter, right? I mean, even if, let's say, a lot of people, a lot of our audience might
I
say,
know.
hey, thank God I'm not on Facebook, thank God I'm not on Instagram. No, no, no.
Mhm.
But you're on the browser.
Yeah.
Browser itself has a whole algorithm working at the back end.
Yeah.
So this is the fear we have even on our learning platforms, right? I mean, because we are making vast amount of content and curriculum available to the students in the digital platform for them to go and discover, and and even the personalized engine also will discover that content. Even they will discover the kind of questions to be asked, uh, to the student, to create that nudge and create that motivation in their learning. But we have to be careful that is not getting tunnel vision.
That's a great point. Uh, as much as you can personalize, uh, learning, it's also really important that you don't, because like if somebody likes to learn a certain way, that's great, and you can personalize for it. But ideally, you want to make them approach, or like you want them to approach different views as well, right? And be receptive to that, because I think that has certainly, the more we've personalized things, the more that has suffered. So I think that's a really important call out to that we will have to actually design for, in these systems that maybe an algorithm won't prioritize. Like it'll be have to be at a system level. Um, so hopefully more companies do that. That's a great point.
Good
I love
question, Kiara.
Yeah.
it. Thank you. I would say I love it. So we kind of have like to-do lists after this conversation for both of you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Lots.
I love it. Well, that was it for my questions. Any final words from either of you before we close out the session?
And
No,
not to
I think this is a very exciting conversation with Abheek. I think I had followed his company and I saw what he was doing, and he's got great adoption of his tools. A lot of my customers, which are publishing houses and tech companies, for the longest time they've adopted digital platforms, but they've been trying to make these kind of tools available to their students in the classroom. So I think this is very exciting, and I hope our audience gets to hear what Abhik has to say about his journey in the classroom.
Yeah. No, and I want to thank you both for inviting me onto the call. I mean, these types of conversations always get me really excited because I think in the day to day world, we kind of hone in on the experiences that we're offering currently and how to improve those at a very small iteration. Even though we have big visions, we focus on the iterative stuff a lot. So these conversations kind of allow us to kind of you know zoom back a little bit and see like, hey, what are we actually building towards? Um, and this conversation just excites me so much because I do have a lot of things to do now, but I think there are things that, are bigger challenges that are the more exciting problems to solve. So always love conversations like these, and you guys were really great, and the questions were really awesome. So excited to kind of continue that.
Yeah.
Abhik,
Awesome.
Abhik,
Well,
thanks a lot for your time, Abhik.
Yeah, of
yeah.
course, of course. Thanks,
Thank you to
guys.
both of you. Yeah. And everyone, Stay tuned for the next episode of EdTech Connect, and remember to stay curious.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.